Good afternoon, Facebook. My name is Suzanne Simpson, and welcome to our weekly segment, Ask an Ecologist. I am happy to be joined today by one of my reptiles. Mrs. Nesbitt is a Kenyan sand boa, and she is going to be my co-host today because we're going to talk about animal adaptations, and she is a great example of an animal that's adapted its characteristics to fit its lifestyle. Now, before we get to that, I want to answer a few of the questions that you submitted to me this week, and thanks to those of you that submitted your questions. The first question is one that I get from a lot of people, and I think a lot of Houstonians have probably asked this question, but never really out loud, just sort of in passing. And that is, why are the bayous brown? Why don't we get crystal clear, beautiful water? Well, a couple reasons. Number one, we naturally have suspended solids in our water, like dirt and soil, that are going to cause that kind of discoloration or opaqueness. And we also have muddy bottoms of our bayou systems that also lends itself to giving the water a browner, more opaque appearance. But our bayous as they are now weren't always quite so brown. There are reports when the Allen brothers were traveling along Buffalo Bayou, and those reports indicate that the bayous did used to be a bit less opaque, a little bit more transparent, a little bit more clear. But over time, as we've had increased impermeable surfaces around our bayous, so things like concrete, the stormwater runoff, and the amount of solids suspended in those waters are all running into the bayou at a very quick pace, and that's caused it to get that sort of chocolate milk brown color that we're all accustomed now to seeing in our bayous. So I think that Houstonians have had a long and complicated relationship with our bayou systems, but I hope that we're beginning to turn a corner and understand all the benefits that they can provide whenever they're in their natural state. I hope that answers the question. Next question was submitted by Michael Nelson, who was wondering if the fish in Cypress Creek, which is a creek in Harris County, in northern Harris County, he was wondering if the fish in Cypress Creek are safe to eat. Well, Michael, the Texas Department of State Health Services will issue fish consumption advisories or fish consumption bans if it's clear that there's elevated mercury or elevated PCBs in a certain water body and you shouldn't consume any fish from it. There are no advisories or bans in place right now for Cypress Creek specifically. So it's always eat at your own risk, but in terms of an official advisory or official ban, I'm not aware of any that are specific to Cypress Creek. Thank you for the question. We just had a question come in, written in by Linda Estrada, who was asking a question for her neighbor who has seen a green tree frog on her windowsill for 3 or 4 mornings, it sounds like. And she's wondering, is this frog sick? Is it okay? It just seems to be hanging out really still on my window. Green tree frogs and tree frogs in general, when they find a hiding spot that makes them feel secure, they will come back to it and exhibit a certain amount of sight fidelity so that you can see the same individual days or weeks or even months in a row. In fact, back at the Bayou Land Conservancy office, we have a storage shed, and there was a period of about a year where if I opened that door, I knew I was going to see 2 green tree frogs on just the inside of it. That was where they felt safe and secure, and that's where they hung out whenever they were resting. So it sounds like you have a nice hiding spot in your house for a tree frog, and I hope it continues to visit you and bring you some joy during this time. Thanks for asking. All right. My next question was submitted by Amanda Guillory, who has a very interesting spider web outside of her house, and she was wondering what might be going on with it. Now, I'm going to attempt to show you what the picture revealed. I know we're battling some glare here. I'll also put this picture in the comments below after this video so you can see it a little bit better. If you can't see it well, what you're looking at is a thickened piece of spider silk that also seems to have this sort of string of pearls going down it. And the question was, what are these? What's these different like ball shaped structures that I'm seeing down the spider web? Well, several species of spiders will build a thickened string of silk down the center of their web that's called a stabilimentum. And overall, they can have different uses, different adaptations. Some spiders, it's not really clear why they make a stabilimentum, but in this case, it looks like this is the work of a trash line orb weaver. And what it will do is it'll take pieces of decaying plant material or debris or, dead insects and sort of line them up along the stabilimentum as a way of camouflage. They will camouflage their egg sacs in some of the debris. They will camouflage themselves in some of the debris, and they will camouflage prey that they've wrapped up in the debris. So it's a really, really interesting adaptation in this spider. Now, this does come with some costs, because in order to spin that thickened silk and to acquire these bits of material, the spider has to expend energy. And research indicates that this line down the center of the web helps prevent birds from accidentally flying into the web and destroying it. But it also makes the web more obvious to prey, and so it can reduce the catchability of the spider. So it's this very interesting trade-off and pros and cons of why spiders create that structure, and it's still something that arachnologists are studying very closely. So thank you for the question. A very, very interesting observation in your backyard. Looks like a trash line orb weaver. All right. Now, I wanted to talk a bit about some of the adaptations that animals have to survive in their specific ecosystems. Now, in the case of Mrs. Nesbitt, let's see if she'll show me here. Look at how adorable she is. She has these reductive eye structures because she is fossorial and spends most of her time under shallow amounts of debris with just her head poking out. So her vision is perhaps not as important as her sense of smell and her sense of sound of vibrations that she gets. And so as a result, she has these reductive eye structures. Another thing that you'll see is that her nose almost looks like it has a little spade on the end of it. And this makes it easier for her to move around the loose sand and the loose substrate that she spends her time in. So Mrs. Nesbitt, who is a Kenyan sand boa, obviously is not native to our Texas ecosystems, but we have many Texas native species that exhibit fascinating adaptations to give themselves an edge over the competition. Now, an example of that is every garden's best friend, the monarch butterfly. Monarchs are really brightly colored. You can see them very easily when they go flitting through your pollinator garden. And that coloration is an honest signal indicating to predators that I am toxic. They're able to sequester the milkweed toxins that they eat, and they're toxic to predators, and they let them know with their bright colorations, you don't want to eat me, I don't taste good, I'm going to make you sick, so stay away. And that type of coloration is called aposematism or aposematic coloration. You see it a lot in insects. It's very profound adaptation in insects. You can also see animals that mimic others that have this aposematic coloration, but perhaps are not poisonous or venomous or have a unique defense strategy. And that's called Batesian mimicry. Whenever you are mimicking an animal that exhibits honest aposematism and you're trying to just be like, he's dangerous and yeah, I'm dangerous too, but don't check. That's what those animals are basically saying, is they're trying to fit in with the tough guy, even though they may not have the same defense mechanisms. An example of a Batesian mimic that we see around East Texas is the milk snake. This is a beautiful, beautiful snake that is mimicking the venomous coral snake, which is, one of the most toxic venoms in North America. But the milk snake is non-venomous. It can submit a musk, but it doesn't have a lot of defense strategies to really warrant the bright coloration that it exhibits. So, my question to you is, can you think of another Batesian mimic? If you can, leave us a comment and we will try to shout you out next week during Ask an Ecologist. I want to thank everybody for submitting your questions. Remember that you can comment on this post, you can send us an email, drop us a Facebook message to submit your questions, and we'll try to get them answered every week here. And I thank you guys again for joining me. This is Suzanne Simpson, and most importantly, Mrs. Nesbitt for Ask an Ecologist. We'll see you next week.